What, as you understand it, is their problem with you competing?
I'm legally and medically female, but the people who oppose my existence still want to think of me as male. They use the language of that I'm a man. And so there's this stereotype that men are always stronger than women. And so if you think of trans women as men, then you think there's an unfair advantage.
My next guest says it's not fair. She is a track and field athlete who used to be the fastest girl in high school in Connecticut. But then she started losing to biological boys who identified as girls and competed against her. She's Chelsea Mitchell. She is suing the state of Connecticut for forcing her to compete against them.
Transgender politics has been at the height of headlines this week after it was revealed an endometriosis health charity had appointed a trans woman as its chief executive. Because endometriosis is a painful condition that affects a woman's womb, the appointment of a trans woman, Steph Richards, to the role caused backlash. Many critics believe an executive role for a charity affecting women should be awarded to a biological woman.
Teenager Brian Ungayan has become the first transgender contestant to win a Miss America beauty pageant. But is this right?
Dylan Mulvaney accepts the Woman of the Year award.
Woman of the Year award, supported by Virgin Atlantic, goes to Dylan Mulvaney.
Some see me as the Woman of the Year. Some see me as a woman of a year and some change, as I only publicly came out online 560 days ago.
Shame on Virgin Atlantic for sponsoring that event and that award. Shame on you. You know better. This is some appeal to its leftist followers, I guess, or leftist flyers. You can't find a better cause to endorse than Dylan Mulvaney as Woman of the Year? Fuck off.
Hello everyone, if you're a new viewer, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If this is your second, third, fourth time watching one of my videos and you are not yet subscribed, we already go together, okay? Make it official and hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about something that has been on my mind for months and I'm finally getting around to talking about it, and that is the ways in which the trans movement is actually becoming the new form of patriarchy. For those of you who are not familiar with the term patriarchy, patriarchy can be defined as a society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. Historically, feminists have fought against the patriarchy. Feminists fought for the right for women to own property. Feminists fought for the right for women to work. Feminists have fought for women to have the right to vote. Although there has always been anti-feminists like Pearl. Pearl has been advocating against women's rights since the 18th century and she is still going at it till this day.
Why women shouldn't vote? Yes, okay.
By the way, that picture is not photoshopped, it is authentic. She has been alive that long. Apparently the secret to eternal life is grifting. Feminists have always fought against a society where women are excluded by men, but it seems that modern-day radical feminists don't realize the irony of propping up a movement that not only seeks to exclude women from spaces meant for women, but also aims to erase what it means to be a woman. Take, for example, the push to change terminology meant to describe women. On my channel, I don't use the word cis. I don't believe someone who is a natural-born woman or a natural-born man needs to be qualified with a prefix like cis. I think the term cis is redundant. A woman is a woman is a woman, and a man is a man is a man. But gender ideologues and progressives feel the need to include everyone in their belief system, even if it is against our will, and by describing people as cis, they are assuming that everyone has a gender identity. I do not identify as a woman, I just am. I do not identify as black, I just am. I understand that there are people who believe there are an infinite amount of genders, such as trigender, agender, non-binary, but respectfully, not only is there no real difference in the definition of those three genders, but none of this shit makes sense.
She is a transgender non-binary. What is that? How can you be transgender and non-binary?
Gender identities are not the only way language is being used to change what it is to be a woman, but there are also activists and organizations using the most ridiculous terms to describe the anatomy of a woman, such as bonus holes, front holes, chest feeding, birthing people, terminology meant to minimize womanhood for the people who find words like vagina, breastfeeding, and mothers offensive. Just last spring, there were people pushing for Mother's Day to be cancelled because it's not inclusive enough. I know next spring, these bitches are gonna do it again. But here in the wokest country in the world, Canada, there were organizations that actually obliged this ridiculous request. Take, for example, the school in Quebec City named La Chanterelle that decided to abolish Mother's Day and replace it with Parents' Day in an effort to be more inclusive. I understand that Mother's Day and Father's Day can be very emotional for some people. Years ago, I worked at a bank as a bank teller, and on Mother's Day, we handed out flowers to the mothers who came in because we thought it would be a nice gesture to show appreciation for the mothers out there. And all of the women appreciated the gift, but I did see a lot of women cry that day. A lot of the women that we gave flowers to had lost their own mothers, and Mother's Day was a very emotional day for them. But despite being emotional, they appreciated the kind gesture, and none of the women were upset. And personally, I grew up without a father in my life. He simply chose not to be involved. And every year in school, we did things like make cards, make picture frames, other sorts of arts and crafts that parents often throw in the garbage. But, whenever we made the arts and crafts for Father's Day, we were expected to, go home and give it to our fathers. And although I didn't have a father in my life, I didn't feel like I should request that the other children don't get to participate. What I did for Father's Day was I took the gift and I gave it to my mother because my mother was the one that fulfilled both roles in my life. I think to request that no one else be able to celebrate Father's Day is not only a disservice to the fathers out there, but it's also just very selfish. And honestly, I can't imagine calling the woman who raised me a birthing person. She's not simply the person who birthed me, she raised me, she's my mother, not my birthing person. If there are people who do not want to be called mothers because of their own gender identities, may the force be with you. Do as you wish, but to demand that no one be able to celebrate their mothers is incredibly selfish. And that's the big issue that I have with progressives. Their idea of a perfect world is one where everyone is coddled. No one must ever have their feelings hurt or emotions triggered except when it has to do with women and women's issues. Women must be seen and not heard and must accept it when biological men want to play in women's sports and make women's sports less fair and less safe. And in the last few weeks, I have seen a huge wave of women standing up for themselves, and honestly, it's about damn time.
A transgender footballer is considering launching legal action after 4 women's clubs refused to play her over safety concerns. Francesca Needham's physical power on the pitch reportedly left opponents terrified, resulting in teams pulling out of their matches. In one case, a player suffered a season-ending broken knee when blocking a shot from her. Needham has now decided to step down from playing football for the foreseeable future for the sake of her club Rosington Main Ladies. But far from backing down, she is considering pursuing a case of discrimination, arguing she has abided by all Football Association policies on transgender players. It comes as transgender women cricketers have been banned from playing international matches following a 9-month consultation process. The audacity of this woman to try and sue women for not wanting to play with a biological man is just hilarious.
I'm very proud of those women for standing up for themselves and putting their safety first. And here in Canada, we recently had a similar situation with Dr. Katia Bissonnette, who is a female boxer who this past October was competing in the 2023 Provincial Golden Glove Championship. An hour before her match, her coach informed her that he had received notice that the athlete she would be competing against was a biological male. Out of concern for her safety, she decided to forfeit the match, and the trans competitor won by default. Dr. Katia Bissonnette gave an interview to the website Redux, and here is an excerpt from the article. According to a study, a male blow has 163% more impact than a woman's, even adjusted for weight, she says, referring to a 2020 study on strength published by researchers at the University of Utah. In the group studied, the weakest man remains physically superior to the strongest woman. Bissonnette goes on to note that women's participation in combat sports is relatively recent, but may not last much longer if females are continuously paired up to fight males. Women shouldn't have to bear the physical or psychological risks brought by a man's decision regarding his personal life and identity. She continues, there should be two categories, biological male and female. I hereby declare Dr. Bissonnette Dr. Badass. Standing up for yourself is not easy, especially when you know your critics will attack your character by calling you a bigot, even when you know your actions are not motivated by malice. More and more in America, women who compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu have begun forfeiting matches out of concern for their own safety. In a previous video, I discussed a woman who was not notified that she would be grappling against a biological male until moments before the fight was scheduled to begin, but she did choose to fight him, and I will have that video linked in the end cards if you would like to see that video. However, there are many women who have opted not to compete in competitions after learning that their opponent was a biological male that had entered into a woman's category.
I am sure you have seen the posts about the trans-identified males who have been signing up and competing in the women's brackets at a few jiu-jitsu events over the past couple of months. Being one of the women who competed against one of them and spoke out about it, I just wanted to get on here and share my experience. I competed against a trans-identified male on Jiu-Jitsu 8 at a submission challenge in Marietta, Georgia, where he registered in my blue belt women's absolute division. It did not take me very long into my match for me to realize that I was not, in fact, competing with a woman. To say the experience was horrible and scary. I was absolutely in fight or flight mode, and as a seasoned competitor, I can honestly say I've never been there mentally before in a match. I've been in spots where I've been subbed, and I've never felt unsafe during a match. After my match, I literally went to the mat side while my teammates were massaging on my arms, and I just could not help but cry and look at my coach and say, that was a man. But despite winning via rear naked choke in overtime, I was devastated, to say the least, by what I had just experienced. It really negatively affected my next match. In the upcoming months, when I went to compete again, I had to self-exclude from a World Series of Jiu-Jitsu and from a women's absolute bracket at a Naga to avoid competing with not one but two trans male athletes.
There are people who will of course have an emotional response to this and see it as transphobic and hateful. But it's not about hate, it's about fairness. And as the pro-women's sports activists all say, these women are not competing against identities, they are competing against bodies. And biological men who have gone through male puberty have bodies that are advantaged when competing against biological females. Anyone who refuses to acknowledge this is just being intellectually dishonest. The reasonable thing to do is to mandate that people compete with their biological sex and wherever possible, have open categories where everyone can compete, but I disagree with mandating women to compete against biological men. Sports are separated by sex for a reason, and feelings should not come before biological realities. It is unfair to put women in a position where they are having to forfeit sports in fear of men. How is that not misogynistic? And to take it a step further, there is a female powerlifter here in Canada who made an appearance on Piers Morgan to shed light on Anne Andres, the Canadian powerlifter who smashed the women's record and also happens to be a biological man. And after her appearance on Piers Morgan, she was banned for 2 years from women's powerlifting.
And I'm even more appalled that you've been suspended for stating what appears to be a simple fact. You were talking about the fact that a biological male who identifies now as a woman and is a trans athlete was gaining an unfair advantage because of their physiology over you. For stating the bleeding obvious, you're the one now who can't compete.
Yeah, exactly. I guess saying truth and fact, calling Andres a biological male is considered hate speech and goes against their social media code. 2-year suspension is very harsh. It's a suspension you would give someone that got caught for doping, put it that way. So, I mean, everyone's still shocked about it. I'm very upset. I'm very hurt by my federation. And I do feel that this suspension was issued, let alone focusing on my terminology to deviate from the real topic at hand, which is unfairness in sports. I know 4 lifters off the top of my head that will be competing against Anne coming up, and that have a problem with it, that have actually written the federation. 2 people have dropped out. 1 person cut weight so they don't have to compete against Anne. It's not consensual. And I mean, it only takes 1 person to not consent.
So this woman is being punished for standing up for other women. We are living in an episode of South Park.
Now that I can compete as female, I'm ready to smash the other girls.
And is it correct you just started identifying as female 2 weeks ago?
I'm not here to talk about my transition. I'm here to kick some fucking ass.
You know, one thing that I find hilarious and insulting at the same time is the fact that women have been menstruating since the dawn of time and throughout my lifetime and the lifetimes of the many, many women that came before me. We have had to pay for our pads and tampons, okay? But now men start identifying as women, and women start identifying as men, and now magically there are organizations and schools that have free tampons and pads in the men's bathroom. So in order for women to get access to free feminine products, we have to identify as men.
The least you could do is be ashamed of your gender.
And can we talk about the biological men who, after being a woman for 1 year, okay, are receiving awards like Woman of the Year? Bruh. I have been a woman for 31 years, and I am still waiting for my participation trophy. Not that these silly awards really mean anything. Like, it's not like you can put it on a, you know, a resume or a job application and expect anyone to think that you're normal. It really is just symbolic, but the message is that being a woman is a performance. And to be a woman, you just have to buy some titties or grow some titties with estrogen injections, put on a wig, put on some lipstick, put yourself all over social media and hope you go viral. And once people find out that you exist, they will seal a clap for you and they will give you a trophy once they find you living as a woman. That's the message that they send when they award people like Dylan Mulvaney with awards like Woman of the Year. Dylan has not actually lived in the real world as a woman. Dylan has existed as an internet celebrity that has had to deal with backlash that he brought on himself by perpetuating negative stereotypes about women and never apologizing for it. And that is who wins Woman of the Year. And then we have women's beauty pageants. Did you know that trans women have been allowed to compete in Miss Universe since 2012, but it was only in 2023, so this year, that for the first time they will be allowing women who are married, divorced, mothers, or pregnant to compete. Up until now, if you were any of those things, you were ineligible. And while holding the title, the women were not allowed to get married or have children, and if they did, they would have to forfeit their title. It took 11 years after allowing trans women to compete to remove the sexist rules that prevented many women from competing. And recently, there's been a lot of questions on whether competitions with trans competitors are free of bias. In 2023, a trans woman by the name of Valerie Cole was crowned Miss Netherlands, but many people on social media were critical of the win and felt that the runner-up was more conventionally attractive. Many people believe the organization wanted to get woke brownie points for being inclusive, and I kinda agree. And then there is Brian Nguyen, who in 2022 won Miss Dairy, which is a title under the Miss America organization. Many people felt that Brian won the title because Brian is a trans person, not because Brian was the most conventionally beautiful person in the competition. Look, these pageants have cash rewards and scholarships for the winners, so it can be very disheartening for the female competitors to know that no matter how long they practice their walks, no matter how much they practice their speeches, no matter how much effort they put into looking their best, a biological male can enter the competition that is meant for women and win only because of their identity and nothing else. And when women voice their displeasure, we are called bigots. And all of this really just boils down to misogyny. It's biological men essentially saying to women, fuck your feelings. And I just want to say that I know not everyone who is trans agrees with the infringement of women's rights. And a lot of you guys have made comments in the comment section. Some of you guys have reached out to me on social media. And it is reassuring to know that there are still reasonable people out there. It gives me hope for the future. Anyways, that is all I have for this video. I think I've ranted quite enough. What are your thoughts about anything that I said? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you liked this video, please don't forget to hit the like button. If you are not yet subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And before I end the video, I would like to say thank you to all of the people who are supporting me on Patreon. It is a small community of you, but I really appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.